Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Jessica-Christin Hametner and I'm the editor of OnOffice magazine. I'm excited to be here today with the founder of Danish design brand True North, Martin Colberg. Today we will discuss True North's revitalization of Danish design and its connection with craftsmanship. We will also talk about wood as a material in the circular economy and why the traditional notion of Danish design has changed. Martin, hello again, and thank you for joining us. I'm excited to talk today, and I look forward to hearing more about your work. To begin our interview, could you please introduce yourself and share a bit more about True North?
Well, thank you for having me on. My name is Martin Colberg. I am the founder of the Danish design company True North Designs, where we design, develop and manufacture furniture, which I would say is in line with the Danish design tradition as you know it. I've set myself on a mission, as you rightly said, to revitalize the Danish design tradition, not through a revolution, but more through a case of evolution and seeking back to some classical values that we've built this on in the first place, and yeah, taking it into the next century or the next millennium as it is.
Lovely. As you've said, you hope to contribute to the renewal of Nordic design and help maintain a high level of craftsmanship in the Danish design industry or furniture industry. What do you mean by this, and what is your opinion on Nordic design?
Well, I think there was a point in time where Nordic design wasn't really very Nordic at all. And if we're looking up through the 90s and the beginning of the new millennium, Nordic design was, as far as I'm concerned, really starting to follow a tradition that was much more in line with something that was more Central European or perhaps even Italian. There was a lot of steel, a lot of glass, a lot of plastic involved in that. And at that point, you know, the greats of our industry, the Carl Hansens and the PP Furniture, the guys that I looked up to when I was small, they did not have the real sway that they do today. So I think that there was a time when Danish design tradition it was in a lull, it was dormant perhaps, and when we started back in 2016, I think wood as a material, as a dominant material, was just beginning to come back. And in the beginning, it was quite novel what we did. But we've seen a surge of some of the big companies in our business, also some of the modern, the new arrivals. You can see the Mutus and the Hayes and those guys. They're starting to embrace wood as a material as well and do a lot of wooden furniture. Which, as far as I'm concerned, is great, because that is part of my mission, is to make sure that we use wood rather than plastic and aluminium, etc., in the furniture that we do.
Which is a much more natural material as well to use, and which will get.
If we cut one down, we can plant another one, essentially. And you can't. I haven't seen a plastic plant anywhere. Not to this point, anyway.
Yeah, you never know. I'd like to talk a little bit more about your inspiration. And we've spoken about your love of sailing before and how it can teach us lessons in teamwork and collaboration. Can you share how perhaps both the ocean and sailing have influenced True North's design?
What it has really influenced more than anything is me as a person and the values that I bring with me into not just my business, but into pretty much everything I do. But in a business perspective, being a sailor, it will teach you quite quickly to be humble, because you are out there in an element which really does have power over you. No one is stronger than the ocean once it really starts showing it your teeth. So I would say that it makes you more humble in many aspects of life. And it has also taught me a few leadership lessons, I would say, being the skipper. Of course, I wasn't the skipper in the beginning when I started sailing, but I took that role upon me as I got older, and I started owning my own boats. And it taught me that as a leader, sometimes you have to take the helm, and you have to, if you want to lead, take the point. And it's shown me the value of of a really close-knit crew, what that can really do on a boat. And I believe that's exactly the same thing in a business. So I run my business pretty much as I would a ship, and it's quite informal, and it's quite family orientated, and we try to have each other's backs in every way possible. On the very, very practical level, I mean, I named my furniture after something that had some kind of maritime connection, or by my boats. So yeah. I have the first chair that we did, the salon chair that I did together with my good friend Jessica-Christin Hametner, who's a Danish designer. It's called the salon chair, and we did a salon table. That's the living room in the ship. So that's a straightforward connection. I'm sitting in a regatta chair, which is also, again, is just a maritime word. There's no particular reason that it's called a regatta chair, because it doesn't participate in any of them. I have a Pandora chair, which was the first boat I owned together with my wife Britta, who owns equal part of the business as I do. So we're in this together, in the same boat, and we have a small set of tables, what we call them lounge tables, that are named after my current boat. So it's both on the meta level and on the very, very practical level, I would say.
It's really lovely to hear. And is there also, would you say, a relationship to nature that perhaps inspires your work? Well, I guess, yes, it does, obviously, with the wood, but in terms of the name itself and how that came about?
True. Well, that's the two sides to that story, at least, as there are too many. But True North, of course, it's a navigational term. So True North, that is the actual North Pole on a map, and you would also have the magnetic North Pole. So that's True North as far as that's concerned. And it also was, I guess, for myself at least, I was sort of saying to myself, a lot of what I see in this industry is not real Nordic design, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do some True North design, yeah? So that was a bit of I was teasing people without anyone other than me being aware of it, I guess.
No, I had that.
I was taking a very gentle stab at someone.
But I had that impression. I think when you look at the type of aesthetic that you produce, it is very classic and timeless, and I feel the name reflects that very well. It's the first thing I thought of, True North, like real kind of Scandinavian or Danish design. You have said before that you perhaps take a more conservative approach to Danish design. Can you share how True North has and continues to revitalize Danish design, and why you also don't reissue pieces?
Basically, I pursue what is timeless rather than what is time specific. And there's several reasons that I do that. First of all, I'm not huge on fashion. I'm not huge on the fashion industry. I don't really like the idea that something is in this year or this season, and then the next season or the next year it's out again. And I think from a sustainability point of view, that's not the right way to go. And I did see that influx on the furniture industry for a while, but I'm quite hopeful for not just our industry, but also, in fact, for the fashion industry and other lifestyle industries, as some people call it, because the young people, they just won't have it.
Yeah.
They want things to be built to last, and they want their clothes to last, and they'll go buy secondhand stuff. And that's my whole idea, is that I'll build furniture that can last for a long time, not just physically, but also that people will want to hold on to for a long time. And if they grow tired of them at one point, then, I mean, there will still be enough value that they can have, they can be sold off secondhand to someone else and find a new lease on life elsewhere. So that is essentially my whole philosophy.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, it reflects, especially the youth, so much better, or it reflects them extremely well, because more and more people question, you know, how are things made, where are they made, with what materials are they made, and I think that will only continue in the future, and perhaps we'll see a move away from, like you said, trends and kind of following fashion and looking at.
I think the fashion industry is really struggling to find its feet in these years, because they know that some things will have to change, and that's all driven by consumers, which I think is great, because that it's the only way to really drive things. Because if the profit isn't in doing stuff that will last, you know, a season, then you chuck it out, then they'll have to seek out all the other alternatives. And I see the same thing happening in the furniture industry. Some of the really big, huge global companies that used to perhaps have more of a focus on novelty than they did on quality, they are taking a completely different approach. And I think that's absolutely great. I welcome that.
Yeah.
They're essentially not my competition anyway, because they're so huge and we're just a tiny little company. So I welcome that, because that's what we need in the world. The whole tread lightly movement, I think that it's hopefully here to stay. And if we don't, then we won't be here to stay as a species.
Exactly. I'd like to talk a little bit more about the connection between design and craftsmanship, and how that connection correlates with wood. What does craftsmanship mean to you personally?
We started the business as a design and development business. So we did build our own prototypes together with some good joiners that are friends of mine. I'm not a joiner myself, so I know a lot about the construction of furniture, but I'm not a great craftsman myself. But I'm fortunate to work with some really good ones. But we essentially started this business as a design, development, and sales business. So we were, as most other businesses that in the furniture industry that you know today, we were more than anything designers. We were a brand, and we brought things to the market. But over time, I've just come to realize that you can't really separate the craftsmanship from the design. And if we look back at a guy like Hans Wegner or Børge Mogensen, they were both joiners, cabinet makers before they were designers, and they had both sets of skills. And I think that if you are just a designer, if that is your only focus, is the form, and then you actually you can quite easily fall the victim of the third-party production guys that you set to do your product. But if you at least know what it is that you're building, and if you are connected to the craft, then you will be much better at getting someone else to do it for you. So that, I guess, was the first step. And right now we have just established our own workshop and are starting to build our first ranges of furniture ourselves. So we will very shortly be launching a storage system called Pantry, which is a solid oak finger joint storage system. Really beautiful, designed by a young Dane who's a joiner first and then a designer, and who's actually becoming part of our business. He's only 26 years old, and he's a real talented designer, and he's a great craftsman as well. And we're starting to build stuff for ourselves, and I've just come to realize that is really important for us. And I would promote that a lot of my peers in the industry start doing the same thing. Get reconnected with the craft.
And does that perhaps involve taking techniques and maybe even materials of the past and then using them in a new way? Or is it kind of taking the tradition and carrying that on how things used to be done?
Well, the material we already have,
It's wood. Yeah.
Grows in the forest.
Yeah.
It's really good stuff. You cut one down, plant another one. So it's circular. It's always been circular. And I mean, Peter Eric, who he actually knows the really old style crafts, but we're not going to be the kind of business that we produce by the ancient methods, because it doesn't make any sense. So there's a CNC machine on the way into our workshop as well. There's a vacuum press that's being delivered tomorrow, and so we want to apply modern methods of production on that most classical of materials, which is solid wood or veneers and linoleums, but to natural materials. So it's not like it's not a medieval workshop that we're doing out there. It's a very modern workshop, and in time I'm ready to embrace robotics as well. It's also a way to keep the workplaces in Denmark or in the UK or in Sweden or wherever you are, that you embrace modern production methods. So we are very much doing that, and we'll keep on doing that as well.
And do you think that craftsmanship has changed? I mean, yes, it has changed over time, but I mean, in relation to the digital age, has that had any impact? I think it has in many ways, yeah, good and bad. But I think there are huge advantages to it. I mean, I turn 50 the next time, so I'm pretty old school in some ways, but I do like the visual, what we can do in the design process, the visualization that can be done. But in the end, I have to build a prototype because I can't wrap my head around it. So I have to see the physical product, and sometimes we even build models. So we'll build scale models, and then we'll build the prototype and build a second prototype. And that's just because that's the way I work and my brain works. But I know that people that are younger than me, they can sort of translate in their head what they see on a screen into what it will look like on the floor. I can't quite do that. That's just because my brain isn't that flexible anymore. But I think there are huge advantages to that, and the programs that you use are quite accessible for anyone. And it means that your time from concept to actual production drawing is reduced quite a bit, which in the end will make us more flexible. That can make us more consumer orientated. So I mean, I see a future where we can do, and not very far away, maybe 6 months, 12 months down the road, where we'll take an order for, say, a hotel or a restaurant, that they'll want 25 chairs in a specialized design. As long as we do it within our framework, we can do that without the cost of development going through the roof and making that impossible. Yeah.
And that is very much due to, the modern design possibilities, what IT and IT infrastructure can do for us.
And going back to the emerging designers, as you've mentioned, you support young Danish designers by providing mentorship and guidance. Why is that so important to True North? Is that perhaps a way to kind of preserve Danish craft or an artistry?
I jokingly, I've said that a minimum requirement for any designer working with me is that they have to be alive at the very least. Yeah. So there won't be any. I mean, I love that generation of Danish designers whose shoulders we obviously stand on. But I'm not going to reissue anything because I believe very strongly that if you don't keep a tradition alive by developing it, then it will eventually wither and die. So we can keep on, digging stuff out of the cupboard and saying, this was done and it wasn't successful, or maybe it was never taken to market, but it was made by a great designer who maybe did 5 or 6 great chairs. And then you'll either reissue something or issue something that was never really meant to hit the market anyway, because it shows that it shouldn't. And there are plenty of other guys doing that, and good on them. And that's their thing. I really feel that I like working with the younger generation of designers, and I like their view of the world, and I want to give them I want to promote that rather than something which has already been seen many times over. So Peter, who's actually now becoming part of our company, I met him when he was in design school, and he spent 3 internships with Britta and I in our business.
Yeah.
And we started working together. He worked for us on the side while he was still in school, and we managed to get his first product out before he finished his design school. And I have a cooperation with one of the design schools in Denmark that we take interns, and it gives me a lot of energy, and I believe I sort of help them. I hope I help them grow, and I hope that I help to let them gain an understanding of what the business is like also.
Yeah.
So I don't treat them any differently in their projects, in the school project, than I would treat a designer I was working on to develop an actual product. And the thing is that sometimes those projects will end up becoming real products that go to the market.
Yeah. And do you think that the traditional notion of Danish design or furniture is perhaps changing? That may be also one of the reasons why you wouldn't reissue pieces?
I won't reissue because I'm really stubborn. I just don't really like that idea. I think that the fact that for years running, the biggest design prize in Denmark was the reissue of the year, and I find that thoroughly uninteresting, to be very honest with you. I just can't bother. I find it, and there might even be an element of ego to it as well, that I find it much more interesting to develop a new talent and to help the new talent develop. It's much more fun. I mean, I do this all the time. I work God knows how many hours every day. I'm allowed to have a bit of fun. So that's really what drives me more than anything.
Perception perhaps have changed, with, in the past maybe looking at buying flat pack furniture, whereas now people do really want to invest in kind of long-lasting pieces. And I guess also how you use your furniture has perhaps changed now more than ever with the pandemic. The boundaries between work and home are becoming more blurred. So where do you see your pieces being used? Do you have a specific area?
Yeah, I guess I do. All over. I'd like them to be used all over. No, what I've always said, I think I even write that on my website. I've said it many times anyway, that I want to build furniture that is strong enough, that is beautiful enough for you to want them in your home, and strong enough for you to use in your workplace. And it used to, if we go back to the beginning of my career, which was my career started in the furniture industry in early 1993, so when I was just very, very young. And at that time, there was a real people really did distinguish very much between what was contract furniture and what was home furniture or retail furniture. And that line is completely blurred today. You will find, the Danish classics, the wishbone chair, etc., that used to be really home furniture, they're being used by businesses all over the world. And that has a lot to do with the fact that, the lines between free time and work time, and where we work and where do we spend our free time and with whom, those lines are really being blurred. And that has all to do with, with the emergence of iPhones and digital communication platforms.
Yeah. And
we can work from anywhere now, right?
Yeah.
And the young people, I think a younger generation, this development started 10, 15 years ago. I think the iPhone came out in 28 or something like that. And it really caught on after that people were really working without many boundaries. And younger people want their workplaces to feel quite homely in that sense.
Yeah.
And so we just try to build really beautiful furniture that can be used in different settings. And when we develop furniture, we also make sure that we're flexible enough in the way that we think them, that we provide options that will cater to a home or to a business.
would you say that wood, is wood the most important material for the circular economy? And if so, why? I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you think.
Yeah, well, I've sort of touched on that already, haven't I?
I know.
Well, in my mind, wood is, yes, I do sincerely believe that wood is the most sustainable circular material that you can build furniture with, or that you can build essentially also housing with. And it has to do with the fact that it is in its nature and in its essence, it is circular. So it will actually plant itself. So we can reuse plastics, and I think we should, because it's there as a material, and it does certainly have its applications, as does aluminium and metal, etc., etc. But the energy cost of giving that another tour around the circle is quite high. And also for some applications of recycled plastics, whether it's ocean plastics or it's Coca-Cola bottles or whatever. If you use them for specific applications, then you will have to add quite a bit of virgin plastic into that equation. And it consumes a lot of energy. And as far as I'm concerned, there are many times better uses to put that to than perhaps those found in furniture. And again, wood, when you build wooden furniture in the right manner, it will last a very, very long time. And if it breaks, it's quite easy to repair. And and that's also why, I mean, we don't do knockdown furniture, but I'm not saying that I would never do it, because I believe that it is quite possible to in fact do high quality knockdown furniture. And especially if you give people proper instructions on how to assemble and how to use this very brilliant material called glue. So if you actually, I mean, glue is also, it does add a lot of lifetime to furniture if you know how to glue things correctly in furniture production. So I think I just think wood has a really broad spectrum of use. It will last for a very long time. It's very easy to repair compared to something made out of plastic, aluminium, or steel. Because once that breaks, it usually breaks for good, and then you have to sort of throw it back into that cycle. Yeah.
Finally, my last question to end the interview. Could you sum up what Danish design means to you?
I think for me, Danish design is essentially, the essence of Danish design is a happy marriage between form and function. So Hans Wegener put it quite well at one point when he said, and this would probably sound better in Danish, but so that's not going to work in this context. But essentially, what he said is that you should turn your construction into your decoration. So you should show your joinery, and you should turn that into the decoration on your furniture pieces. And in many ways, that is what we try to do on our furniture. That we use contrast woods, and we rather than hide our joinery, we actually try to show it off a little bit, finger joints, etc., etc. Yeah. So that for me, I guess, is the real essence of Danish design.
I love that. That's really good. Yeah, that's a great way to end the interview as well. I think that's a really nice way to put it.
Good.
Okay, good. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It was really great to chat and to hear a little bit more.